Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. We are broadcasting on all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world. We're bringing you quality pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m. on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, and for the first half hour, we're going to be on TikTok. And then at 7:30, we're going to have our guest this week, who is a favourite of the show. It's Ash, the Preston Journalist, and he's going to come on and we're going to talk about the latest in British politics, including the cabinet reshuffle, including the Reform Party conference last weekend, and anything else that you want us to talk about. I know that Ash will definitely engage with you. So folks, please do tell us where you're watching from on this autumn evening. Please do send in your greetings, send in your comments, and send in your questions, please. And we will do our very best to read them out. And if you can see your way to giving us a repost on X, please. If you can see your way to sharing us on Facebook. And if you can see your way to giving us a thumbs up and a follow on YouTube, please do so, because it's that engagement that helps get this message out to a wider audience and then for it to snowball through the social media airwaves. And that's what we really do rely upon in this modern age, is the people promoting the message, because gone perhaps are the days when one would rely upon the legacy media to publicize their favorites. They don't have the power anymore that they used to have. The power is in your hands, quite literally in your hands, with your mobile phone or your computer browser. You are the media. And we noticed that this weekend, last weekend, I should say, when we had a historic first. We had Edinburgh's first ever immigration restriction public event, and it was outside the Scottish Parliament on Saturday, the 6th of September. So we're going to be telling you how that went. And I have to say, it went well. Very pleased with it. And we're going to take you through it from beginning to the end and give you somewhat of a debrief on how that went for those of you who couldn't be there. And if you were there, please do fire in your comments and tell us how you think it went. What did you think of it? How could it have been improved? What was good about it? Please do send in your comments and tell us what you specifically liked about it. A very, very good first effort outside Holyrood, no question about it. Now, before I continue, let me just introduce this very colourful flag at the back of where I'm standing here. It's the '85th anniversary flag for the Battle of Britain. The Battle of Britain is the general name given to the often actually fairly indecisive air conflict which occurred over the skies of the United Kingdom from the end of 1939 to the 15th of September 1940, when there was a particularly big Luftwaffe attack on London. and they were repelled by the British Royal Air Force. And so 15th of September 1940, 85 years ago, has gone down in history as the day to remember the Battle of Britain, to remember that particular aerial combat during those months. And as I say, when you look at the actual history of it, it was often fairly indecisive. One side winning sometimes, the other side winning sometimes, and it has, however, tended to have been heavily mythologized as a consequence of Winston Churchill's famous speech about never was so much owed to so few. That really set it on the map. Because, of course, after the 15th of September, the Luftwaffe continued to attack the United Kingdom. But what it did was it switched its tactics to night bombing, essentially, which the British were not so prepared for and which we were not so good at repelling. So, as I say, the aerial combat continued. But the 15th of September 1940 has gone down as the day to remember that the battle in the skies from the beginning, essentially, of World War II until that big major battle, which the Germans lost on that day. So that's 15th of September, which is going to be Monday. So we're putting this up to commemorate that. This is the closest, although next Wednesday we've got another Battle of Britain flag which will fly just for the sake of it and just to keep those things fresh in our memory. And there's actually, I'm pleased to say, there's quite a nice load of flags up in the mall, looking very colourful. There we go. That was taken yesterday by, I think, Rafe Hadelmanku. That's from his Twitter page. And you've got the Royal Air Force flags there, along with the Union Jacks decorating the mall. And I have to say, if Britain is still good at something, it is good at that sort of pageantry. We've always been good at that pageantry. We've not always been so good at relating the pageantry latterly to actual power and influence, or even protecting our country in the way that pageantry suggests we should be doing. Anyway, nice to see, if nothing else. Okay. Let's say hello to some of the folk who have come in. Debbie was first in. She says, good evening. Couldn't make the Enough is Enough rally, but hoping to make the Glasgow one on the 20th of September. Now, what Debbie is referring to here is that there is another event on. We're not organising it. It's being organised by, my understanding, is a group called Bring the Noise. And from what I've seen, it's certainly very sympathetic to the kinds of topics that we engage in as well. And that's going to be in Glasgow, in the vicinity of the Buchanan Steps at the top of Buchanan Street on Saturday, the 20th of September at 1 o'clock. And I don't know who the speakers are, but I know that the man who calls himself Bring the Noise, I'm sure he'll be speaking. That's John Watt. And we wish the best of success to that event. And we'll flag it up next week for the benefit of people who might want to be reminded of it. So that's the 20th in Glasgow. As I say, we're not organising that, but we're certainly sympathetic to the people who are organising it. Derek says, good evening, everyone. Great seeing those who made it to Enough is Enough, but we need more people at these events to show the opposition. But fortunately, there's other rallies going on at the moment. Yes, well, all we can say is well done to everybody who came out, and we'll show you some pictures in a moment. I have to say, we were all extremely colourful. What we might not have had in numbers, although we still had a modest amount, we certainly made up for in sheer colour. And Derek says that he wishes everyone who's going to the Saturday the 13th rally in London, that's a big rally called Unite the Kingdom, which is going to be in London in 2 days' time, 3 days, Saturday. I won't be at that, but I know one or two people who are going to it, and I wish the organisers of that very best of luck as well. Oksana says she couldn't make Enough is Enough because she wasn't feeling very well. Well, I hope you're better these days, Oksana. Missed not seeing you, certainly. Now, Catherine says she's not seeing us on X right now. Let me see. Are we on X? We are on X. Yep, we are on X. I'm glad to say we are on X, Catherine. We're broadcasting clear there. And it seems that we have been for the last 11 minutes. Hello to Rafa. Anthony, we've got a pic of you coming up, one or two, I think, actually. So stay tuned. He says, evening, hope you're well from Tony in Edinburgh. Great day. Need a better PA system. Oh, that's the thing, isn't it, with the PA systems? That PA system was a better one from the one we had in September, but we actually do need an even better one, don't we? Because one of the speakers gave out. Oh, well, we're working on it. We're working on it. Christopher was there. Excellent day, he says. We had all the messages. The other side had pretty much nothing to say other than vulgar insults. Oh, goodness me, yes. When people are shouting and calling you horrible names, you don't want to rise to that. So you just have to ignore it, really. But they certainly didn't have anything wise to say. Anthony has shared. Dominic got a small photograph of himself in the Sunday Post. Well done. Holding one of our banners. Hi to Derek. Rafa says that the Singapore economy and its immigration laws are a good example for the UK. Interesting. I don't really know very much about Singapore, Rafa, but I've heard good things about it. We Say It says, good evening. Hope you all enjoyed the Enough is Enough rally. Well, Nick from the We Say It podcast was one of the speakers there, as well as the co-organizer of the event, and want to say congratulations to you, Nick. I know that your speech went down extremely well, and especially among one or two people who said to me that you were a very powerful and charismatic speaker. So more power to your elbow going forward. Catherine reposted the stream on X. Thank you, Catherine. Good. We Shug says, good evening all. Good evening to you, sir. It's the new battle for Britain, really, in many ways, yes. Well, let's take a look at some of the pictures. Now, that's where we were. Now, those of you who know the front of the parliamentary building there, that's towards the left-hand side of it, right up near the grassy area. And what the police had done is they had set out quite extensively all these metal barriers, and that was our area that we had to stand in. Across from us were the people who specifically didn't like us. They call themselves the Stand Up for Rapists people. That's not what they actually call themselves. They call themselves Stand Up to Racism, but they certainly had no reason to be standing against us, because everything that they heard from our side was absolutely fine and fair and normal and democratic. But anyway, they decided that they didn't like us, but the police had them cordoned off, and between us there was what they call a sterile space. And then behind that lot, the all under one banner marchers eventually arrived and contented themselves at the far end of the grassy area. And so the three different groups were actually pretty well separated, I have to say, and pretty well stuck to their own field. And the policing appeared to be very light touch. I mean, if you looked about, you did not see many yellow vests at all. And so there you can get a better idea of where we are. That's looking obviously at our podium. Immediately behind us are the opposition that was screaming and shouting at us. And they said there was 3 times what we had. They did not have 3 times what we had, but they did have more, probably maybe 50% more than us. I would reckon that we had around about 125 people there. And so they maybe had like 175 or something like that. And then behind them is where the all under one banner people filed in when their march arrived, and they stayed over on the far right hand side, away from the opposition immediately behind us. So the 3 groups were kept in that, and you can see the sterile area there, where you've got 2 or 3 police officers standing around. And just a couple of things I want to say about that picture. That's Ken Thompson from the political party called the Alliance for Democracy and Freedom Party. He was the second speaker, and they are what you might call anti-lockdown, pro-freedom of speech, kind of a party that's concerned about those sorts of personal freedom and liberty issues. And on the right-hand side there, you'll see one of our speakers. And what I have to say cleverly did was I dressed the speakers in our QR code posters, so that instead, when you take a photograph, if somebody was taking a photograph, they would actually get the QR code of how to donate to our organization, and they wouldn't just be taking a photograph of a black speaker. You know, there's something there, including our website address. And notice the background as well. It's important that when you have a podium for something to stand on, get an epic background going on. Okay, if we had turned round and had the concrete wall of the parliament behind us, how crummy that picture would have looked. Whereas we've got an epic scenario. Now, just take the picture off, and I just want to talk to the camera for a moment. This is something that I learned I was reading about John Ford, who was the Western director of Western movies. And he said, if you want to make your actor look epic, you situate him in epic scenery. And so I would like to think that some of our speakers there look epic because of the epic background that's going on. And just little things like that really do aid the image of everything. Okay, back to the photographs. Okay, what's the next one? So yeah, that's a side on of our event, and as you can see, we've got saltires, Union Jacks, Ulster flag, the Welsh flag in there, Lion Rampants. We had English flags held by Scottish people as well. And so basically it was just showing unity with the rest of the United Kingdom. And that's Nick speaking there in the background. You can just see him on the right-hand side. Okay. That's, I think that's really just when we were sort of assembling Somebody sent that picture in. Again, see the colour of that. Now that's our third speaker, Dr. Alan McManus, epically framed with Arthur's seat behind him. Nick Mitchell there at the front with his baseball cap on, and one of our PA speakers with a QR code, and there is a Scotsman holding the St. David's, the Welsh flag. So, and behind us you can see one or two of our sorts who don't. Now, just a word about Dr. Allen there. He was actually representing a Scottish nationalist party called Sovereignty, and he's going to be their candidate in Cumbernauld and Kirkintilloch next year. Okay, so we can talk to Scottish nationalists who understand the importance of controlling Scotland's borders. And he gave a very well received speech, I'm pleased to say. Okay. That's Dr. Allen is in there speaking away. Very big Union Jack held above everything there by our man Gordon. Well done to you, sir. Okay. I think this is my favourite photograph. I took this photograph and it's just a blaze of colour, and it really just sets it off nicely. That's the crowd in our area there, with the focus on the 5 women at the back. That's another good one with a nice website address there, aforceforgood.uk. Looking good. Okay, there's our man with his classic t-shirt which says "Not far right, just right." And if he turns round, you would see the back of his t-shirt, which is in fact that design right there. And we took a photograph of the back of this gentleman's t-shirt back on the 7th of September last year, and we were so pleased with it that we thought we need to use that for the front cover of our book. So thank you, sir. Thank you for that. And that's standing in front of a flag that says "Stop the Benefits." Okay. There's Nick holding forth, giving a very well received speech, looking epic with the epic Arthur's seat in the background. Another shot there. And another one here, good shot of the Welsh flag. And I like this one. This was by Billy Knox, who's a professional photographer. And he took that photograph. And there's one of our supporters proudly wearing an AFFG t-shirt and pointing to it. And the chap on the right as well has got a very nice smile for the camera. Okay. And this, we haven't seen that before. That gave us some ideas. That's a really good flag. A saltire with "Stop the Boats" on it. I can imagine if John Swinney saw that, he would have an absolute conniption fit. Or if Humza Yousaf saw it, they would be, "This is not what the saltire was meant to be used for. The saltire's welcoming." So we might have to get something like that done for ourselves, I think. This, I stuck that one up there because that's taken by Billy Knox, and that's a really good photograph of myself and my colleague. And I like this one as well, which is Nick holding up our book. And in the background there, you can see the wee group of people who are shouting at us. And on the right-hand side, at the bottom there, you can see the AUOB people who are all looking the other way at their particular speakers who were just blethering away themselves. And I think the final one, and if we can just get rid of that red banner, please. And you'll see there down at the bottom, you see all these organizations and unions that are funding the so-called Stand Up to Racism people. And I pointed this out on the screen. I've been through every single one of these groups, and 95% of them, wait for this, are actually funded in large part by British taxpayers in some form or another, which is unbelievable and disgraceful. Okay. And I would say this, if and we can get rid of that now. I would say that if we can get contrarian MSPs elected into Parliament next year, then they have to set their goal at defunding all of these groups of our taxpayers' money, because the Scottish Parliament is giving our money to many of these groups, and these groups do not deserve it. And these groups are using it clearly politically in order to engage in the political conversation for a particular end, which is not what they're meant to get taxpayers' money to do. So we have the proof clearly that these groups are implicated in that particular political message. So they shouldn't be getting taxpayers' money to campaign in that political way. Now, you can give taxpayers' money to a group that, say, wants to help integrate refugees to a particular town. Okay, maybe there's a role for that. But when they take that taxpayers' money and then they start politically campaigning against groups in order to promote open borders, then that's a completely different matter. And they should, if they start doing that, then they should be defunded. And we spoke about this in an entire chapter, and we explained the ins and outs of what's wrong with that and how to correct it and how we would frame a law in order to defund these groups. And believe me, if these groups got defunded, you would not see them being as big and as successful on the streets as they are, because they're only doing it as a consequence of having our money in their pockets. And so that's the way it is at the moment. And for many, many years, they've just been allowed to get away with this. But it has to end. It has to end, because we cannot even survive as a country if we are giving money to the people who are campaigning to open the borders into our country. Simple as that. Now, a group that's trying to stand up for British sovereign border control is, of course, a force for good. So if you would like to help us, and if you think that what we've done is worthwhile, then please go on to Amazon and simply search for Protect Our Country. You can get this as a hard copy or as an ebook. And even if you're not going to read it, just buy it when it arrives, send it to your MSP, send it to an MP that you think needs to hear about all the good policies in here, because we're about trying to get it into the hands of people who can make it happen. So that's one way. Search Amazon for Protect Our Country. If you just like to drop a donation in to thank us for what we're doing. And we did make a loss on that event, by the way. We always make a loss on our events. So if you would like to help us to recoup some of that money, please go to aforceforgood.uk/donate to, that's numeral 2, or even better, if you would like to support us monthly, please go to aforceforgood.uk/union-supporters, and you can donate from 69 pence a week, which works out as £3 a month, or £1.25 a week, which works out at a £5 a month. And that really does help us. It really does help us, and it keeps us going. Thank you. Okay, now in a minute we're going to bring on our man. I just want to say to the people on TikTok, we're just going to end the stream now, because when we're on speaking on video to a friend, you won't be able to see anything. It will just be me saying nothing, and some of you might want to have a look at that and might enjoy that for half an hour. but there won't be any actual things being said except here. So we're just going to say goodbye to all the good folk on TikTok. Thanks very much for watching. Some comments here. Anthony Bowie says very colourful and top class. Rafa says not far right, just right. Anthony says belter. Mr. Leslie says good show. Christopher says yes, we're right regarding the funding of these groups. Tommy says, could you send that information to the speaker at Holyrood? Are you referring to the book? We could certainly send it to people in Holyrood, and we're going to. Thomas says that he left Unite. He thinks unions are some of the worst, and that Unison and GMB are exactly the same, and he's not going to join another. Indeed. Michael says, did you get the comment I left on your last video? I'm not sure that I did, Michael. I'll have another look at that. Okay, folks, please say hello once again to Ash, who is coming on now to join us all the way from Preston. Hello there, Ash.
Evening, Alistair. You well?
Very well, and very pleased really with everything that's been going on. We had as you've just seen there, quite an exciting weekend. It's not going to be the last. We're going to be doing that again in front of Holyrood, and we welcome everybody else to join us. And you've been busy yourself, of course, with a very, very powerful YouTube channel that's got something almost 44,000 followers, and you've been knocking out these videos several times a day. And so I'd quite like to maybe ask you about one or two of the videos that you put out. For example, you put out one today saying that you don't think the Labour Party understands politics. Now, what exactly were you meaning by that?
The very last thing you do is give your opponents airtime. And albeit it was a loveless landslide when Labour won the election last year, they now have over 400 MPs. So you've got absolutely no need to give anybody else the airtime. You can basically do what you want in Parliament, sadly, and they can do whatever they like. But what are they doing? They're spending their entire time talking about Nigel Farage, talking about Reform UK, a party with 4 MPs, and let's face it, no power whatsoever. Yes, they're ahead of the polls, but that can be changed if Labour actually did something that people wanted. So you've got absolutely no need to talk down a party that is 1% of your own. It just doesn't make any political sense whatsoever. I sometimes wonder, have these people got any advisors? Is Keir Starmer so pig-headed and believes himself to be so saintly and right all the time that he just does what the hell he wants? That's the only conclusion I can come to, that you do not give your opponents the airtime that Labour do. It's ridiculous.
Well, there must be some reason why they are doing that, though, in the sense that they must think that it's going to help them in some way. I mean, it seems to me that they are copying, or they're trying to suggest that they are addressing the issues that Farage is promoting. So they're maybe trying to ride on his to piggyback on him and say, look, we are doing what he's saying. But whether that's a successful strategy, I don't know. I think it, as you say, it really just tends to make them look the lesser, to look like the cheap version, the cheap version of the real article.
For weeks now, possibly even a couple of months, Farage has been dictating the political agenda in this. In fact, you could say he's been doing it for years, actually. He's been dictating the political agenda in this country from outside of Parliament, from inside Parliament, whatever it is. And we've got a government in charge of this country that is not proactive in any way, shape, or form. They just react to everything that Farage does, or they react to events all the time. This is a party, don't forget, that sat in opposition for 14 years. They had such a long time to get plans together. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they've come into government, and it seems to me they've got absolutely no idea what they're planning to do, what's going in the future. They're being led by events. They're being led by Farage. Again, a party with 4 MPs. They're being led by Reform UK, which is ridiculous in itself. They should be dictating the agenda. They should be saying what they want to do. I think, and this could be the first Labour government to ever realise this, they're realising that what they want to do is wholly unpopular with the vast majority of the country. And the vast majority of the country didn't vote for them. Let's not forget, only 20% of the electorate, people eligible to vote, actually voted for them. So they're already in major trouble. Starmer sits on minus 59 approvals already. The government, minus 54. The government sits on minus 59. The economy is going to hell in a handcart. Immigration is out of control, and these people have done nothing. In fact, the crossings are up 48% in those so-called small boats. You know, yes. Nothing's going right. I believe, and I said, people were laughing at me at first. Now people are starting to come around to my way of thinking. I believe they're so keen to try and target reform because there's no way we're going to 2029 for an election. An election, in my opinion, is coming in May next year.
Well, that's a good point. I think what you've got there with Labour is that they've gone in with an agenda, as you say, that they realise actually nobody wants this. This is going to make us lose it. After all, we thought that the British, the British working class just needed to be persuaded that open borders and internationalism is actually the great thing that we've always known it to be. And we just need to get into power and talk about the wonders of mass immigration and open borders. And everybody will go, oh, yeah, that's actually a good idea. After all, and they've done it, and they've realized, oh, hang on, nobody's actually with this program at all. If we want to get elected, we're going to actually have to be immigration restrictionist in some form, which goes against entirely their ideology, their modern internationalist ideology. Same here in Scotland. The SNP are just internationalists. And so they cannot actually, in good faith, support any kind of border control. They literally can't. It's not in their nature to do so. And so they're to keep it with Labour, they're basically just in a situation where it's like, we're going to have to do stuff that's completely opposed to what we believe in. And they're not doing that even very well. I mean, Farage, for what you might think of him, he's like the real deal, as it were, on all of these matters. And so they have to suddenly realize they've got to kind of follow him. But it's interesting that you think there's going to be an election like next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'm sticking to that. I think it's because the Labour Party are not going to replace Starmer now. There's no chance. He's been there probably a bit too short anyway. I believe actually Rachel Reeves is being lined up to be the fall guy for this. But in May next year, you've got the Holyrood elections, you've got the Welsh elections, and you've got thousands of council seats also being decided throughout England. Labour are going to get absolutely walloped in all of those elections. Reform look like they're set to be the biggest party in Wales. Labour looks set to lose. I can't remember. I saw the polls the other day for Holyrood, but they're set to lose a lot of MSPs. They're going to be even smaller than the Tories if polling is to be believed. And in the English council elections, they've got absolutely no chance. They're going to get wiped out there as well, just like they did earlier this year. So I think what they're going to do is wait and see how they go. Starmer's going to get slaughtered. But then Starmer is going to have to make a decision. Do I call an early general election, or do I let the Labour Party try and boot me out with an embarrassing vote of no confidence? This guy takes himself so seriously. He thinks he's so wonderful. I think he would rather call an election than hand over to anybody in that party.
That's interesting thinking. Of course, yeah. I hadn't really thought about the extent to which they're going to get hammered. They're not going to do well in any case next year, next May, 7th of May, which is the big day next year. Then the media are going to be promoting the idea this cannot continue,
Mm-hmm.
And
it can't. He's a dud. He's an empty suit. He's a dud. I say this advisedly, and it's just my opinion. I've said it before, though. It's just my opinion. I think he's got something wrong with him, Starmer. I genuinely think he's not all there. You look at his eyes; he's got a dead stare. You know, he seems to have no personality, no empathy, nothing. There's absolutely nothing to the guy. I'll give it. When he won that election last year, do you remember when Boris Johnson won in 2019? Boris Johnson, right? Say what you like about him, crap prime minister. But when he won it, he knew that all those red wall seats, as they called them, the Labour seats that turned Tory that year, were testing him, a bit of a temporary vote, if you will, and they were probably going to go back to Labour again if he ballsed it up. He made a mess of it. They went back to Labour. But he said when he got elected, they have lent us these votes, and we need to prove to them that we're good and we can stay in power and we can do the job. Labour won with even less votes than what Jeremy Corbyn lost the election with in 2019. So surely Starmer could have said the same thing. Have a bit of humility about you. Say, we realise you're not so sure about us, but don't worry. We're going to prove to you that we're good at this. This is what we're going to do to improve your lives, etc. And to my mind, they've done exactly the opposite since they came in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's a good point. When you said that about the election, I knew I had read that maybe somewhere. And in the Scotsman on the 6th of September, there's this report. Farage tells party to expect election in next 2 years.
He's saying 2027, isn't he?
He's saying 2027. He went on, I think there is every chance now of a general election happening in 2027. And he said the government is now, quote, deep in crisis amid challenges from the Green Party and the new party led by Jeremy Corbyn. And well, there's a thought as well, because next, if there was to be a general election, some of the Labour vote, this is where he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because Starmer is losing support to reform on one side of his party, and on the other side of his party, the far leftists, for want of a better expression, they're moving to the Greens and to the Corbynite party. And so he is kind of stuck with just wet centrists, whatever you'd want to call them, so which is not enough to win. So I mean, Labour, we talk about the Tories being kind of on the way out as a political party, the Conservative Party being absolutely decimated now by reform. Labour could be looking at exactly the same thing, losing what's left to the Corbynites, if the Corbynites though get any money behind them, because that's the thing the political parties depend upon. I don't think this is good, really, but they do depend upon millionaires, and there won't be that many millionaires who are going to give money to the Corbynites, lest they get taxed more.
Well, what's happening here is we had 13 years of Blair and Brown, which were a complete disaster, in my opinion. Then you have another 14 years of the Tories, who carried on the Blair-Brown project. Really, nothing changed. They were just the same people with a different colour rosette on the blazers. And people now have finally seen through the establishment of this country, which I'll try not to swear. They're not on our side. They are against the British people. They don't care. Ever since the 70s or the 80s, people have been voting. In fact, you could go as far back as Enoch Powell and say that since then, people have been voting against mass immigration in this country, just to take one example. What's happened? It's increased and increased and increased over the years. And people can see now that the establishment, whether it's Tory or Labour, they just ignore us. They're not even bothered about us. And Starmer has managed to reach the unpopularity levels of the Tories now in 14 months. It took them 14 years. But it's not all Starmer's fault. Yes, he's crap, but it's a combination of years and decades of Tory Labour rule that has destroyed this country and put us in the position that we're now in. And no matter what Starmer does now, I believe, and I think Sunak was in the same position, he can say what he wants. People are not going to vote Labour next time, and they're not going to vote Tory next time. They want to smash the establishment. So whether that means, like you just said, you leftists go to the Greens or whatever, and then people who are more conservative-minded, like myself, would go to Reform UK or maybe some other party on the right, possibly. But people are not going to vote for the establishment any longer. They've had enough of it. And I think next time round, we're going to see a huge swing in this country. We might even see signs of that, definitely in Wales next year, possibly even some parts of Scotland.
Well said. Well said. That's it. That's a good summary of where we are after decades of mismanagement. And I did raise a smile when I went onto your YouTube page today, and you describe your channel as treating the establishment with the contempt they deserve.
That's the
aim. He's quite militant on that one. Absolutely. Well, quite right. They do absolutely deserve a huge amount of contempt for what they have done and continue to do to this country as a consequence of their false ideologies. And it's a really bad thing. Christopher says here, Labour are doing a fantastic job building reform. We all need to vote for Reform UK, says Christopher. Some people might agree with that, others may not.
I know there's a lot of people attacking Reform at the moment, and I don't think they're perfect. I don't think they're perfect by any stretch. Don't get me wrong. But I am so determined that this country has got to break that duopoly, the uni party, that it would take something pretty extreme for me not to vote Reform UK next time, regardless of what other people say. They just need to reduce Labour and the Tory party down to nothing. And then we'll see where we are. If they fail, if Reform fail and they turn out to be establishment shills that do nothing for the British people, then to be quite honest with you, what have we lost? Because you'd get that anyway if you were voting Tory or Labour. So we've got nothing to lose in my eyes. The country's such a mess.
Yeah. Did you watch the Reform Party conference at the weekend at all?
Yeah, I watched some of it. I watched some of the bigger speakers like your Richard Tice. I watched Nadine Dorries. I'm not a fan of Nadine Dorries. I don't know why they've taken her into the party. I did watch Farage's keynote speech, of course. I didn't watch all of it, not religiously, but some of it, yeah. It was quite good.
Yeah. Do you think they were pitching it correctly? Their messages?
Yeah, but then they have to come out and clarify some afterwards, don't they, which gets on my nerves a little bit. So I must admit, during the Farage speech, when he came out and said, we'll stop the boats in 2 weeks, I thought, don't promise that. That brought Sunak down, and that's going to finish Starmer off pretty soon as well. So you shouldn't be promising things like that. Then he clarified it afterwards in an interview where he said, well, we'll stop it 2 weeks after we pass the legislation to stop it. So I was like, right. So you shouldn't really have said that, should you? Because you're not going to stop them in 2 weeks. But he just knows that the message will have got out there now, and more people probably watch the conference than actually watch BBC or whatever, where he gave the interview to. So now a lot of people are out there thinking, they're going to stop the balls in 2 weeks, which is not necessarily true.
No, you wonder to what extent these guys say these things just for that bait, just to think, well, we've got to say something outrageous or something that the media will pick up on and make a thing of, and at least we'll get the crux of what we're trying to do out there.
Get the headlines, don't you?
Yeah, whether that was misspeaking or whether that was intentional, I don't know. But as you say, it's a bad idea for politicians to promise things in the future because you don't know what the future holds.
No. And
you should never promise something. You should say, if we get elected, this is what we will aim to do. But it shouldn't be a promise. And no politicians should imagine that they should be held to. If they're foolish enough to make a promise, then okay, then they're going to be held to it. But no politician should promise this, because unless you can tell the future, you can't promise what you're going to do. I can't promise what I'm going to do next year because next year a whole set of circumstances may have arrived that mean I can't enact or do what I wanted to do. The best you can say is, look, we're going to aim for that on this basis and we'll take it as it comes, but that's what we're going to try to do. That's if you are, just being straightforward about it. But I get that sometimes as a politician you have to kind of be a showman and a dramatist.
I think it was on purpose. I don't think Farage misspeaks. He's been around politics far too long. He's too long in the tooth. And to be honest with you, he's far too good a speaker to misspeak like that. He knew what he was doing. That headline now is in lots of people's heads. They're going to stop the votes in 2 weeks. That's all people are thinking now. A lot of people aren't necessarily, following politics all the time like you or me. That's what people will have heard, and that's what he wanted.
Yeah. Do you know what? I mean, theoretically, it could be possible, because if you pass the legislation, which we detail in our book here, which is quite simply that it's going to now be an illegal route, and anybody who does it will get detained and will get fast tracked to prison, perhaps a purpose-built prison. You won't have to do that for very long. You won't have to do that for more than 2 weeks until the boats will stop, because nobody's going to want to get sent to prison if you can show that you're serious, and that's what you're doing with every single man that comes off that boat. And as for the women and children, as I mentioned in here, you can have a secure hotel to detain them in, but they're detained there until they either serve a punishment, or during their punishment they can decide to go home. And if they decide to go home, then you take the biometric details so that they never get back in, and you can also help pay their flight home as well, because as I say, you won't have to do it to very many or for very long until everybody gets the message. Yeah. You don't get to stay in the UK at all, and that asylum via the channel is just not allowed. And why this wasn't done 20 years ago, I do know it's because we're wrapped up into this terrible UN refugee convention that we've been stuck in since 1951 of all blooming times, a completely different age, generations ago, as if it's relevant in any way, shape or form to what's happening today. Absolutely just terrible. And it's the people who misgovern us, the system. I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but Keir Starmer had this big reshuffle. Okay. And basically he what they do is you get somebody like Yvette Cooper, who was the Home Secretary. And so she's beginning to talk about getting the boats under control, and she's getting into the job, and she's a couple of years into it. And then you come along and you say, right, enough there. We're going to stick you into a completely different job now. You're now the Foreign Secretary? Yeah. You've got to learn the ropes of being a Foreign Secretary now. And as for the Home Secretary, we're going to put somebody else in, and they're going to take 2 years to get a grip of what's going on here. So it's like the British cabinet system is purpose made to ensure that your management structure never, ever beds down and does its work. It's constantly shifting. Managers here, there, and everywhere, changing jobs every 6 months, every 18 months. And as a consequence, your business will never grow and never prosper. And it's like there's not a business in the world that runs its management like that. And so I just feel that this cabinet system that we have does not help good governance at all. No. And they appoint people. I always make a wee joke about it. It's like they say they must all be sitting about there and they go, we need a defense secretary. Who knows anything about defense? And if it was me, I could say, well, my dad used to be in the army between 1968 and 1971 or whatever it was. I think it was earlier. And they go, Alistair, brilliant. You can be our defense secretary. Literally that would be my knowledge of defense. And I've got a Battle of Britain flag at home. Brilliant. You must be into you must be into this field. We'll let you be the defense secretary. I mean, that's really what it is. What they really need is like, okay, who's the biggest and best brain in Britain? about defence. It's going to be an academic or an ex-army general, or it's going to be something like that. And you say, right, get him in to do it. And in our system, what that would mean is you would need to ennoble the person to the House of Lords. Once he's in the House of Lords, he can then be brought into the cabinet. You can bring in lords and others from the House of Lords. Now, of course, the media would scream that was so undemocratic, but at least you've got an expert in, and you can say that's your job for 5 years, and these are your targets. And if you don't meet these targets, okay, we will have to replace you. But basically, you're in there for the duration. Make a good job of it, or we'll get rid of you. And that would, to my view, would be a far better way of running a country than all this cabinet nonsense and appointing people who have no knowledge whatsoever, who just happen to have been elected. Oh, just like, okay, so you're like a 27-year-old who got elected for like Hartlepool or something like that. You can be the, the whatever secretary. It's just ridiculous to my view. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I couldn't agree more with you. I said the same about civil servants as well. I do the American system where you can bring in your own civil servants so they can't hold you up like we get now. Yes, Prime Minister, delay tactics, all that stuff. That was one thing that came out of the Reform conference where Farage said he's going to pass a law where he can assemble a cabinet of all the talents, he said. So somebody could serve in cabinet and they don't have to be an MP. You can actually just bring in an expert. Like he's brought in that Colin Sutton who caught Levi Belfield, that criminal, didn't he? The child killer. He's now advising them on crime. He's got that woman that used to run a prison. I can't think of her name now. She's got questionable beliefs, but nevertheless, she knows the field at least. She knows what prisons are like. She's speaking for them on prisons. Such a better system. The problem is for Reform that if they do win the next election, they've got a House of Lords stuffed to the gills and growing all the time with Tories, Lib Dems, and Labour. So what they're going to have to do, and it's not popular this, and I don't like it either because I want the Lords shrunk by about 75%. But what Farage is going to have to do is appoint about 500 Lords as soon as he becomes Prime Minister, just to try and have a majority in the House of Lords so we can actually pass things through. Otherwise, he's going to get bogged down every time he tries to pass something. And you're right about the cabinet system. We end up with people that have no idea about the jobs they're in. Look at this current lot. The only person, and this is frightening, the best one they've got for the role that she's in is Rachel Reeves. And look at the state of the economy. She's the only person that's worked in banking. Not one of the current cabinet has ever worked in private business. Not one of them has ever owned a business. Wes Streeting has never worked in health. What's Peter Kyle ever done on trade or trade and business? Nothing. He's never worked in a business or trade. And this is the problem. We've got all these union activists, overgrown students, I call them, who are now in all these responsible positions, and they're just being led by the nose by the civil service. And that's the problem with this country. And it's why nothing ever gets done.
Totally. And it takes people like you and I to point this out. Okay. It takes people like you and I to point this out. And it just shows that the so-called, you used the phrase establishment, it's obviously just been very handy for the establishment just to keep this system going without ever really stopping to see, is this system the best thing that could work? And it's clearly landed us in a situation at the moment where we are in heading into deep straits. And I do feel that we're entering a kind of, I say revolutionary in a small r sense. I don't see it being a violent one by any means, but I do see a lot of changes are going to start happening in the next 5-10 years, which will kind of rejig the way that Britain is governed. And as a unionist, I would hope that it will help to keep the UK together going forward. But I do think we need some kind of fundamental changes. I think we can keep the core. The core works. I mean, the idea of Parliament and things like that. It does work. It just needs to be upgraded, as they say in modern parlance. And it should be. And it's going to take an incomer like Reform to do it, because the traditional parties, the legacy parties, are not going to do it.
No.
And I'm going to just I mean, I'm not a Corbynite by any sense, but they might even have a role to play as well in shifting the debate to kind of widening it out a bit as well. I mean, I know they're not on our side as such. They're not probably supporting Britain in any great sense, as the sense that you and I are patriots, but they could as well just help to move the conversation, as it were, away from just your boring Labour Tory thing into a new fields where we can perhaps widen our thinking in some ways to address the modern challenges that we're facing. So interesting times, I have to say.
It is very interesting at the moment. I've got no issue. Corbyn, I think he's a loon. I've got absolutely no time for the guy whatsoever. And he'd never win power anyway. So he's no threat to this country or democracy. But I do have respect for him in that at least what he believes in is what he says. He actually has a set of principles, albeit he's wrong. But at least he has a set of principles, which is more than you can say for the Tory and Labour leaders at the moment, who just bend with the wind and just hope that people start voting for them again, or they're going to win the next election or something. At least, Corbyn believes in something, which is better than a lot of these people. Farage believes in something. You know what I mean? These people do actually have belief systems. Whether you like them or not is up to you. But,
well, I'm always fascinated by the Corbyn family because Piers Corbyn, which is the brother, I think the older brother of Jeremy, Piers Corbyn is very based. In fact, Piers Corbyn has been at some of these immigration rallies, complaining about how digital ID, for example, is going to be brought in on the back of mass immigration and things like that. So, and Piers Corbyn, not to be confused with Piers Morgan, but Piers Corbyn is a man that I've got a lot of time for, I have to say, and that's Corbyn's older brother. So, I mean, the family's not completely. You can't completely write them off. They've got some interesting thinkers there among the brothers. Anyway, I can't believe it's 8 o'clock. What a great conversation. The past half hour, it's gone felt like 20 minutes. Ash, we must have you back on. I know you're going to do a wee review of our book. I don't know if you got a copy.
I have. I've got it right next to me.
There you go. Fantastic.
I am going to put a video out on this, going through the book. I have read it. It's a great read. I recommend anyone buying it. And I'm always happy to do anything like this and come back on the channel whenever you like. Because I was thinking about this before I came on the channel. And I thought, when I first started YouTube, the channel was still small and everything. I thought, where did it all start, really? As it happens, A Force for Good. I think it was Megan or yourself or somebody else there emailed me just saying, do you want to come on our channel? I'm like, I'd never heard of you. I'm sure you'd probably never heard of me. You just came across a video or something. And then all of a sudden, it was the first time I ever spoke on a channel that wasn't my own. I remember being all nervous about everything. I thought, I love coming on this channel. It's like where it all started for me. So it's an absolute pleasure.
That's fantastic to hear. Well, thanks very much. I remember that as well. And I remember how pleased we were. It's like, yes, he's going to be on. He's going to be on. Excellent. Because had been very impressed with your videos that you've been doing. I thought, this guy's got a lot to say. We need to get him on and try to help him. So yeah, thanks very much for coming on, and more power to your elbow. And you've gone from strength to strength. And I would advise everybody to, if you don't already, please do follow Ash at his YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@Preston Journalist, all one word. Good. Well, we'll have you on again before the end of the year, no doubt, if not sooner. And just remains for me to say thank you, Ash. And,
thank you, and keep an eye on my channel for tomorrow, because I'll put the reviews going out tomorrow. So
brilliant. We'll fire that one around on all our socials, definitely. Good stuff.
All right, cool. Thanks, Alistair. Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Bye-bye. Excellent. Good old Ash. Well, that's right. Derek says, great show, guys. Thank you. Anthony says, thanks, Ash. Tommy says that Piers Corbyn may have got arrested in Trafalgar Square. Christopher says, show's over too soon. Great show. Thanks, Ash and Alistair. Catherine says, thanks, Ash. Great chat, as does Oksana. Michael says, great to hear from Ash. Rafa says, nice chat. Good stuff. Folks, as I say, if you haven't already, please do consider going on to Amazon and just searching for Protect Our Country. It's only $12.99. That's the hardback. 315 pages of incredible common sense that really needs to be heard by every politician. And you can help them by simply buying a copy and sending it to your favorite politician that you think needs to know about it. Also available on ebook as well. And if you'd rather just drop a donation into the show, then just send that to aforceforgood.uk/donate to. And if you would like to become a monthly supporter for a very small amount, is just a matter of aforceforgood.uk/union-supporters. Now, folks, we are going to be back next week. We've got a guest next week. It's our good friend from Cheshire Cat Musings, Damien Davies, who'll be back for his monthly talk with us. Looking forward to that. In the meantime, we wish you the very best. Thank you to everybody who left a comment tonight. It just remains for me to say, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the King. See you next week.